All right, here, welcome back. It's talk time. Of course, we're moving on to the main issue of the day, talking about electricity as a vital to modern life. It powers virtually every aspect of human life, from lights to home appliances and even the manufacturing sector. Globally, electricity use is rising rapidly in new major economies because electricity brings development.
Now, this growing need for electricity drives the demand for electricity generation. Now, it is in this context that we will examine how Nigeria's economy can grow if the coal energy generation option is explored. Now, we have joining us right now from our Abuja studio, Alex Osunde. He is an energy analyst. It's good to have you join us right now, Alex. Good morning. Now let's hit the basics. Nigeria was known to be to have deposit of coal in large quantity, especially in parts of Enugu and parts of Plateau State. And in parts of the world, coal is used as an energy alternative to fossil and all of that. Now, tell us how viable it is for us to go into coal as an alternative source of energy right now.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. It is an important thing to note that all over the world, coal is the major source for energy, for electricity generation. In parts of Africa, like South Africa, for example, it's probably about 90%. And that's leveraging on the fact that South Africa has a lot of coal deposits. Similarly for Nigeria, I think we can do that. We have a lot of coal deposits. And in terms of viability, I think it's clear from research, carried out about 2 years ago at the ESUT, the Enugu State University of Technology, by engineers. It is possible to generate coal, to generate electricity from coal to the extent of maybe 500 megawatts, and it's going to cost maybe about 1.2, 1.3 billion US dollars at 2013 prices. And in terms of internal rates of return and other indices, it will make a lot of sense. On a per unit basis, maybe about 4 cents per unit in terms of generation cost. The Energy Regulatory Council, or Commission, talks about 7 cents. And so, in terms of viability, I think it is viable in Nigeria, clearly, from research that has been conducted.
All right, very interesting. We will, of course, like to dig deeper to find out to what extent, coal is a viable option for Nigeria's electricity demands. But let's define exactly what coal is. It is decomposed vegetation compressed beneath layers of sand, sediment, and rock at high temperatures over millions of years.
Now, Nigeria has commercially exploited deposits of locals scattered across the nation. Now, coal was discovered in Nigeria in 1909 in Enugu State, and the production of coal reached its peak in the 1950s.
With the Civil War and oil discovery, coal production started to decline. Subsequently, coal mines were abandoned. Dependence on coal waned as major companies switched to the use of diesel and gas. And after the war ended in the early 70s, coal production never recovered.
And Nigeria's coal reserves are estimated to be about 2 billion metric tons spread across many states like Delta, Kogi, Enugu, Kwara, Ondo, Adamawa, Bauchi, Plateau, Nasarawa, Imo, Anambra, Abia, Benue, Edo, among others. And Enugu State is synonymous with coal, and the state is regarded as the coal city state of Nigeria, reflecting the abundance of a natural resource in the area.
Mike, isn't it amazing? I mean, we grew up thinking that coal had to do with Enugu State, but to think that about 15 states
in Nigeria have a large deposit. We grew up in around the Plateau area, knowing that Jos particularly has a very large deposit of coal.
Amazing. Now, coal is presently used to power more than 40% of the world's electricity, with the percentages much higher in countries like South Africa, 93%, Poland, 92%, China, 79%, India, 69%, and the United States, 33%. Actually, some statistics say it's somewhere around 49%. Now, China accounts for 46% of global coal production and 49% of global consumption due to its large electric power requirements.
Now, in South Africa, electricity generation accounts for 43% of all coal consumed in the country. In many other countries, coal-fired power stations are located close to a coal mine from where they are directly supplied with fuel. Now, the country generates about 34,000 megawatts of electricity from coal.
All right, let's bring in Alex Osunde here, energy expert. Now, there are worries or concerns in different parts of the world, of course, including Nigeria, about the environmental impact of exploring or exploiting coal as a viable source of electricity. Of course, you said it's viable, and so many experts like yourself believe the same. But are there risks? What are the risks to the environment? I mean, is it something we should really be concerned about compared to fossil fuels and all other, energy sources like nuclear?
Oh, certainly. The environmental impact of using coal or other fossil fuels are well documented, and they can be indeed dangerous for the environment and, of course, for climate change. You mentioned China. China and the environmental impact of its energy use is very fossil fuel use is very well documented as well. That is a problem, but it's not peculiar to coal. Of course, petroleum and other sources can be deleterious to the environment. You just saw in the segment before this that the refining of petroleum could also be very dangerous if not well handled. So it's all about technology. It's all about how you improve on ensuring that the environment is not damaged. And also, we know that clean energy from solar or from wind, you cannot have enough of it because the technology is there, but it's not very well commercialized. So we still need to look at coal. And the engineers have all the design methods of minimizing the deleterious effects on the environment. So in terms of carbon emissions, that can be controlled and reduced.
All right, Alex, you have told us earlier on that studies have been carried out in different places, especially in Enugu, as to how viable all of this is. But how likely is it that Nigeria, looking for ways of diversifying her economy, diversifying her endeavor, how likely is it that coal will be an option for energy generation?
It had been there. The first coal-fired plant was, around not too far from the coal mines in Enugu. And as far back as the early 70s, it produced maybe 2-3% of our electricity requirements. Today, it's nil. It is possible to implement electricity generation from coal, but it does take time. It does take a lot of money. Dr. Fayemi, the minister, had, of solid minerals, had said that, we expect by 2020 to have about 1,000 megawatts generated out of the use of coal. Now, that's a good projection, but the truth of the matter is you need 5 years minimum to be able to implement such a plant. So in terms of conceptualization, design, construction, and bringing to operation. And in terms of money, in 2013 prices, researchers, as I quoted, had estimated that we need about $1.3 billion to implement a plant that will produce 500 megawatts. So if the minister's projections are to be reckoned with, then you need about 2.5 or so billion. Take a lot of money. Dr. Fayemi, the minister, had, of solid minerals, had said that, we expect by 2020 to have about 1,000 megawatts generated out of the use of coal. Now, that's a good projection, but the truth of the matter is you need 5 years minimum to be able to implement such a plant. So in terms of conceptualization, design, construction, and bringing to operation. And in terms of money, in 2013 prices, researchers, as I quoted, had estimated that we need about $1.3 billion to implement a plant that will produce 500 megawatts. So if the minister's projections are to be reckoned with, then you need about 2.5 or so billion US dollars. Now, that's a lot of money. And in terms of raising the money, of course, you will need some equity, you will need some debt. And all those, will have to come from largely private sources because, government at this time is really cash-strapped. And so we think that, yes, it is viable, yes, it is necessary, yes, it is possible, but, the time you require is minimum 5 years, and the amount of money you require is probably close to about $2.5 billion for 1,000 megawatts generation.
All right. Alex, we'll come back to you on this. Now, in 2015, the United States generated about 4 trillion kilowatt hours of electricity. Now, about 67% of the electricity generated was from fossil fuels, I said coal, natural gas, and petroleum. Coal equaled about 33%, natural gas about another 33%, and nuclear about 20%, hydropower 6%, renewables 7%, and others amounted to about 1%.
In Nigeria, power is generated mostly from gas-fired plants, while output from hydropower plants makes up about 30% of total generation. Now, this year alone, the national grid has recorded 17 total or 5 partial collapses. Recently, the federal government placed priority on utilizing coal reserves to increase the country's electricity generating capacity. Now, the goal is to revive the coal mining industry and expand power generation.
Now, according to the Minister of Solid Minerals, Kayode Fayemi, Nigeria is expected to generate 1,000 megawatts of electricity from coal by year 2020 to supplement other sources of energy currently in use in the country. Now, Alex mentioned that just a moment ago. Now, let's see things this way. How much it requires to bring back the coal mining to the level where it can make significant contribution to the electricity generation. Do you think with the recession and all of our economic, socio-political and economic challenges right now, it is a doable project?
We really have no choice. We would have to invest more in solid minerals, and notably coal, because coal is relatively easy to access, easy to exploit. Yes, we need capital. We need money to be able to do this. And I would recommend that we not, of course, leverage just on government. It's important to allow the private sector, local and foreign, to go into this area. And I know that the ministry is already encouraging private investors in this area. That really is the way to go. Not just because of power generation, but also for export. This is necessary to bring in foreign exchange. So as we could see from the map, there are a lot of opportunities countrywide, not just in Enugu or its environment. So we need to encourage people to invest in this area, and for the long term, we think that the energy mix, in terms of the sources of fuel, should really be diversified, and coal should take its place. Coal actually should be a dominant source. Gas is also very important because Nigeria has large gas deposits. But you know, we all see the security implications of relying on just gas, because largely we've relied on gas, and when the pipelines are attacked, then the nation is thrown into very difficult straits.
Indeed.
Also, the hydro plants are clean relatively compared to hydrocarbons, but the problem there is, of course, seasonality. The fact that when it's dry season, you know, it may be difficult to rev it up to the required generating capacity. So, all in all, we need a diversified source of energy generation, and coal certainly is the way to go.
Indeed, very interesting. I mean, it cannot be overemphasized. On the left-hand side, or is it your right hand? If you're watching from home, you can see the computer generation of a typical coal processing plant. I wonder if what you have in Enugu looks like that. I remember doing a documentary on the Enugu coal mine. Total, complete dilapidation, abandonment, and I'm just wondering what it will take to revive the Enugu coal mine, for example, and in other places where you have coal deposits in Nigeria. Now, Alex Osunde, adding to some of the facts or the reasons you've given out, why coal should be the option for Nigeria if we're going to have electricity. Comparing the longevity of coal to other forms of energy. Look at oil and gas. It's 25 to 30 years, while coal will last us another 1,278 years.
From estimates.
From estimates. And gas will last us another 180 years. Of course, oil, 25 to 30 years. So, I mean, you couldn't be any happier to hear that, the coal deposits we have in Nigeria will take us another 1,000 or so years. But talking about, attracting investment to the coal mining sector, what does government have to do? I mean, looking at South Africa, you've had so many cases of illegalities and all of that going on. Miners, dying underneath the shafts and all of that. How can Nigeria regulate that sector if it's something we're going to look at seriously?
Well, let me say at the outset that you need a diversified source. And I support a lot of the clean energy sources like wind and solar. And we should, constantly focus on those areas as well. But we are talking of an emergency, energy emergency. The demand is well above what we can supply. And therefore, it is important to also take the coal situation as an emergency on its own. But I must say that the availability of coal under the ground is not a guarantee that it is economically viable at any point or at any place in terms of bringing it to the surface and utilizing it. There are many coal mines all over the world that are not economically efficient anymore. In the UK, for example, a lot of the pits in the UK had been, abandoned and closed. Ditto for South Africa and Australia. So we push for, of course, the government to give concessions, and tax holidays and other incentives for investors to come into this area. And I'm very excited myself about the employment prospects, and opportunities for our people, because currently you have more than, 1/4 of our youths out of work. Now, that is not a good, indicator. We need to put them back to work, and this is one of the avenues for employing people. Yes, it's going to take a lot of capital injection, and that's where the private sector will come in. It is not for government to keep raising money to finance this. I think that where it is economically viable, the private sector, if encouraged by government, through incentives, will go into coal mining and the use of coal for energy generation.
Yes, Alex, that was going to be my next question to you, talking about private investors into coal mining. We've seen that there are lots of demand for coal as an alternative source of energy, and there are lots of prospects, as the case may be. What kind of incentives should be given to private investors that would want to go into coal mining in the Nigerian context from where we find ourselves right now?
First, the licensing and, other permits must be made available, reasonably cheaply and with ease. Additionally, the cost of capital is an issue. If you look at the study that I mentioned earlier by the professors at the Enugu State University, the assumptions for the cost of capital were quite high even at that time. They would even be higher now. Debt, for example, was projected to about 19-20% per annum. Equity about 21-22% per annum. Now, in terms of the cost of capital. Also, in terms of taxation, tax was about 32%. Now, for government to encourage anybody to go in there and invest, you would need to look at all these parameters, all these costs. And I think that subsidized interest rates for investments like this would be important. A lot of the funds coming in would be from outside, and so government may need to offer some form of guarantees. Let me say also that in terms of the energy sector regulation, pricing is an issue. I said earlier that in terms of the cost of generation, it's about maybe 4-5 cents. And the regulatory authorities locally are saying, look, you can't charge more than 7 cents per unit. Now, that is very close. And so government needs to look at these aspects of regulation vis-a-vis the cost of generation, and then, of course, later transmission and distribution. So I think these are the areas that government would need to focus on to be able to encourage investors. But certainly, environmental issues, policy certainty, and then incentives along the fiscal lines will be necessary to encourage foreign and local private investors.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Alex Osunde, energy expert, talking to us about the viability of coal as an option for Nigeria's energy needs or requirements. Thank you so much for your time and your insight.
My pleasure.